the ultimate of giving beatings to Bender. That's right. I'm talking about last season's, the 2025 Ultimate Beat Howard Bender Best Ball Draft Tournament winner. Joe Jacoby, 10 grand in his pocket for just making me look foolish.
Being a Redskin fan in New York is like going to a Chinese restaurant to order pizza.
I see this part.
This is Joe Jacoby again with the Joe Jacoby Fantasy Sports Show. This is going to be our second episode, but this is going to be the first episode where we start isolating key metrics to look out for on drafts. And I can't think of anything better than discussing the overvalued player in your draft. This is where drafts are actually lost. When you put too much stock in a guy that's being drafted way too early, the consequences could be not winning. And that's the reason why you don't want to do this. So I put together a list. I'm going to do one quarterback. I'm going to do one running back. I'm going to do one wide receiver. I'm going to do one tight end. Now, obviously, it's very early in these drafts right now. So information is going to continue to circulate. But the one constant in the NFL is going to be change. These 4 picks that I have to stay away from may be constant throughout the year, and I'm going to give you the reasons why. Starting off with my first one, Jackson Dart. Yeah, I know, he's a New York Giant. Guy had a great year, but he does spend a lot of time in the big blue medical tent. And these are the type of things that I'm looking out for with Jackson Dart. I love him as a player, highly talented guy coming out of Ole Miss. But the one concern I have with Jackson Dart is durability. And the other concern I have with Jackson Dart is who's he going to throw to? I mean, Malik Neighbors is coming off a major surgery, getting a lot of off-season rehabilitation. And from what I was reading, it doesn't look like he's going to start the season on the team. And if he does play, he's not going to be 100% healthy. So that is one of the reasons why I'm cautious on Jackson Dart. I was recently in a 10-team best ball draft 2 nights ago, and I saw him get picked in the 10th round. Now, there's 20 rounds in the Beat Bender football draft, which I entered quite a few of them. Again, I did really well with it. The most important thing is I'm seeing him getting picked in the 10th round out of 20th. Now, that puts him somewhere around a 10th pick. I'm looking at this 2 ways. For those of you who are not familiar with best ball drafts don't require any daily or weekly lineup changes. It's draft and accumulate points. We'll go over that in another episode, but it's closely tied to standard drafts, and it does give me a lot more information when I study best ball. Whether you're in best ball or a traditional fantasy league, I don't have enough confidence to draft Jackson Dart as a primary quarterback and lead my team, and you shouldn't either. So I'm going to give you a couple of reasons why. This is a quarterback that relies heavily on his legs. Injury risk. Now, John Harbaugh is the new head coach of the Giants. Let's look at his history. He had one of the best scrambling quarterbacks of all time in Lamar Jackson, who was very, very good at staying healthy. So I'm seeing a lot of similarities on how this offense is going to look. And if you're really into fantasy football, you have to really be into the NFL. And the NFL is built on 2 things: game scripts and strategies. So if the game script and the strategy are in alignment, it changes the whole dynamic of a player. Jackson Dart is one of those guys. So there's more questions than answers when it comes to putting stock in Jackson Dart as your fantasy team quarterback. I mean, think about it. He's got Darnell Mooney, he's got Malachi Fields, and you got a banged up Malik Neighbors. Is not enough to justify taking a quarterback that in my most recent draft was the 7th ranked quarterback out of 32 teams. 7th out of 32. Okay? He was picked higher than people like Bo Nix, Jared Goff, Trevor Lawrence. These are proven guys that are going to put up a lot of points, and they're in good systems with good strategies, with good game script. Even Kyler Murray, I mean, again, I talked about him in my first video, and I'm going to do something on him because he's one to look out for, but this isn't about that. This is about an overvalued guy like Jackson Dart that is literally, you're throwing darts at a board if you're picking this guy, literally, no pun intended. So to sum it up, the guy played in 14 games as a rookie. He was a top 15 quarterback last year. I'm not taking that away from him, but a lot of that had to do with his ability to be a dual threat. I see regression, and I see something comparable to what CJ Stroud did a few years back, where he came on strong, he did really well. The next year was a flop, and he's not highly touted as he was. Jakobi Meyers is my second overvalued pick, and I know this is a weird one because I'm Joe Jacoby, and growing up as a kid, every single kid I was around used to sing the Jakobi and Meyers song to me, the commercial. He's a tough guy to pick as an overvalued guy, and he's not necessarily a high-end stud, but I've noticed that this guy, he came into Jacksonville last year. He was traded from the Raiders. So drafted around 99, 66 overall value in the wide receiver category, and he's going above guys that are going to probably do way more damage than him. The Raiders again traded him to the Jags. He had 42 catches for 480 yards or so. He got 3 touchdowns in 9 games, and everybody got really hot on Jakobi Meyers. I used to watch him play when I go to Raider games because I'm a season ticket holder, and I saw how he ran his routes, and he just seems like a guy that you want to root for. But here's a problem with Jakobi Meyers. He's in a crowded wide receiver room, So let's talk about that. You got Brian Thomas, one of the biggest disappointments last year on the Jaguars. People drafted him super high, and what happened? He was a letdown. So then you had Parker Washington, who got really good, really hot at the end of the season. Then Jakobi Meyers came in, Remember, he only played 9 games with the Jaguars. But then you got Brenton Strange, who's pretty decent as a tight end, and Tootin is going to be the starter this year, so he can catch passes out of the backfield, probably just as good as anybody else that can catch passes on the wide receiver core if they use him enough. So here's the caution with Jakobi Meyers. You can't be drafting him like as if he's a core of your team. You can't draft him and expect him to be a solid every week starter. The best guy on the Jaguars, if you really want to get the productivity from all of these guys that I'm mentioning, is Trevor Lawrence. He's the better player to have when you have receiver roulette in Jacksonville, and I call it receiver roulette. Yeah, I live in Vegas, and I think it's a good way of analogizing these type of rooms, similar to Green Bay in Liam Cohen's offense. That's a plus. But there's a lot to risk drafting him in the 10th or 11th round in a 20-round draft. I say either you hope for him to drop to the later rounds and grab him, or just stay away. So that covers our receiver. Don't overdraft Jakobi Meyers. Even though he has my name, stay away. Here's a running back, and I touched a little bit about him on my first video. Jadarian Price, I believe that this guy is going to be great in the NFL. I take nothing away from Jadarian Price. I watched him play in Notre Dame. He was a first-round selection. I think he was 30th overall. And his stablemate, Jeremiah Love, he went first overall. So this guy shared a backfield with a running back and winds up getting picked first. Now, think about it. You see how I'm excited to say that? You see how great that sounds? This is why people are overvaluing him, because they're not looking at the game plan. They're not looking at the injury status on that team. And most importantly, you're not looking at the Seahawks dynamic. They've lost some personnel this year. They're a different team, but they're starting over, And the last thing they probably want to do is take all that faith and stock that they put in their first pick and just make him a workhorse out of the gate. They brought in Emmanuel Wilson from the Packers. I believe he's decent. He's good enough to fill a gap. You got Zach Charbonnet that probably might miss half the season. He had a major knee surgery, but he was slated to be the starter. You can't forget what the original plan was, because it's like in the movie, well, actually, it's like what Mike Tyson says. Everyone has a plan till they get punched in the mouth. Good old Mike Tyson quote. But he just got picked in the 6th round of a draft I was in. Okay, 20-round draft. He's picked ahead of guys like Joe Burrow, Chuba Hubbard, Ramondre Stevenson, guys that I believe are going to do a lot better. I mean, at the end of the day, I take proven ability over speculative ability, unless he's that once-in-a-generational player. Now, let's talk about a once-in-a-generational player. I'll give you an example of a running back that was great as a rookie, so you can kind of see how rare it is for this to happen. The greatest rookie running back in NFL history. I want you guys to say what your opinion is in the comments, but I'm going to tell you who actually it is. It's Eric Dickerson of the Rams. This is back in 1983. He won the Offensive Rookie of the Year. The guy was phenomenal. He set every single rookie record imaginable, and he had 1,800 yards or more. I think it was like 1,830 or something. 2,200 plus scrimmage yards, and he scored 20 touchdowns. Okay, now think back to guys like that. Do you think Jadarian Price is going to be the next Eric Dickerson? Are you willing to put a 6th round pick on him, a 5th round pick? In some drafts, I've seen him go in the 3rd or 4th round. I mean, you're drafting on speculation. You're not drafting on fact. Now, I think it's best to not put too much stock in rookie running backs and maybe pick them up on the waiver wire. But if you're building a dynasty team, yeah, I can understand grabbing a guy like that. But at the end of the day, if you're doing best ball, if you're doing standard leagues, why would you go so high on a guy like this? I mean, even Saquon Barkley, if you remember back in 2018, he had a little over 2,000 yards from scrimmage and he scored 15 touchdowns. Now, that was a guy that was worth an early round pick because he didn't really have anybody to compete with. And again, he brought a whole new dynamic. But to put that much stock in a guy like Jadarian Price when you had guys like Ezekiel Elliott in 2016, ran for over, I think it was 1,630 yards and 15 touchdowns. It's really hard to duplicate that, and these things only happen once every few years. Could it happen for Jadarian Price? Yeah, I hope for his sake it does. But the Seattle backfield's messy. There's 2 guys, waiting to play, and he's got to prove himself a little bit before he gets to that level. So I suggest staying away from Jadarian Price unless you can get him later in a draft where he's really pickable, 7th round, 8th round, maybe 9th. I mean, I would take a shot then, but not at the 3rd, 4th, or 5th pick. Don't get overexcited about him. I got 3 out of the way. We've gone through Jackson Dart, okay? Overvalued, be careful. We've gone through our running back, Jadarian Price. Don't pay too much. And then we got Jacoby Myers, who's not the most touted player, but I see him being a little bit overvalued in drafts, and you need to be a little bit leery of where he fits in that team. So here's the 4th one, the good old-fashioned tight end. This is always the hardest position to figure out in fantasy football. I mean, I kid you not. After a few guys go off the board, you're simply guessing. I mean, you got the staples every year that are going to get picked high, and then you got the guys that are going to be a little bit highly over-touted because of what they did last year. In the league that I was in, the Beat Bender that I won the championship, the tight ends were rated a little bit higher as far as points. So in normal leagues, if you get a reception from a tight end, it's 1 point. But in that league, it was 1.5 points. I kind of switched up my strategy, didn't go for tight ends right away. I'll talk about that on another show, but I'm going to tell you right now, the tight end position is a position that's going to either make your team or do nothing for it. There's no in between. I can't think of a more qualified person to be overvalued than, yes, Kyle Pitts. Kyle Pitts. This is a player I'm going to be avoiding. Even if he drops further down the draft rankings, I still am avoiding him. He had an awesome run last year, okay? He finally played like the guy that the Falcons were hoping when they selected him in the 1st round of the 2021 NFL Draft, okay? Highly touted tight end. Such high hopes, big promises. After 5 years in the league, he finally woke up and now he's a top 7 tight end this year. going off the boards right now. This is a classic example of drafting last year's statistics that never bode well for future gain. I mean, I'm just shocked how when I was recently in a draft that he went in the 7th round and he went above guys like Isaiah Likely, George Kittle. I mean, even good old Travis Kelce. Okay, Travis Kelce, I know there's not a lot of gas left in the tank, but I mean, come on, guys. You're taking Kyle Pitts in the 7th round because of last year's stats. I mean, what has changed in Atlanta from last year to this year? I'll tell you. Let's start with the quarterback. Kirk Cousins is now a Raider. He's gone. He was a very tight end aware type quarterback. Went to his tight ends. Not in the picture. Michael Penix can't stay healthy. The guy had so many high hopes for the NFL, constantly getting injured, and now they bring in Tua Tagovailoa. I mean, Tua Tagovailoa. They chased him out of Miami. Okay, the guy is definitely in the winters of his career, and I can tell you right now, Tua Tagovailoa is not the type of quarterback that I want if I'm drafting a guy like Kyle Pitts. And I'm not saying Tua Tagovailoa is the worst quarterback in the league, but let's think about a couple of things, okay? It was hard for him to not throw interceptions. The guy, he made some bad decisions on the run. There's just many things I could go on with Tua Tagovailoa, but I'm thinking about how Kyle Pitts is going to be receiving these passes. And Drake London missed quite a bit of games last year, okay? So keep that in mind. So when Drake London wasn't in the game, who got the targets? It was Pitts, Bijan got a lot of action, and Darnell Mooney. I mean, you can't really give Pitts the credit he deserves for a year that was a little bit, I think it was a one-off. That was a one-off year for him. One good year out of 5 years, major changes in the offensive scheme, different personnel, and he's going in the 7th round. It just doesn't make any sense. So, I mean, I look at this from not just a fantasy perspective. I look at this from a statistical standpoint. You had 88 catches from Kyle Pitts last year. He did 928 yards and 5 touchdowns. And all of this means he goes in the 7th round. I don't think it works that way. Drake London wasn't around much. Again, key players, key personnel. This is a head fake that's going to cost you an early round pick if you put too much faith in Kyle Pitts. Could he have a good season? Absolutely, but we're playing fantasy football. We're not playing NFL. So if you really want to get the points out of a tight end, you should be looking in other areas where there's consistency, and consistency meaning almost good every year. Or breakout guys like a Tyler Warren, guy on Indianapolis. He was doing good till his quarterback went down. When game script change, injury comes along, you got to reshift. In a best ball league, you're stuck with who you draft with. In a standard league, you got to do drops, you got to do ads. And, I wouldn't be surprised if Kyle Pitts is one of those people that you see dropped in week 12 or week 10. There's going to be people that are probably going to give up on him. So I'm avoiding him. And again, if he falls down to 11th or 12th, in a draft, yeah, I might consider taking him. But 7th round, I mean, high ADP like that. He did have a great year. He's in the top 8 of all tight ends out of all of them on most of the drafts that I've been in. But I'd rather have a guy like Chike Okonkwo, or give me a guy like Kittle coming off an injury, might start off a little slow, but he'll be consistent. That's my take on overvalued players. Don't drink the Kool-Aid. Don't get last year's numbers wrapped in your head. This is a whole new year. This is a whole new outlook. 2026, 2027, this is not what you saw last year, and it's going to continue to be like that. So I'm going to continue to break down players as we go, and I want you to tune into the next show where I break down undervalued players that are sitting there just waiting to hand you a championship. I mean, this is June. You could say we're early, but early bird is going to get the worm. A lot of my teams that I cashed on last year, I did a lot of those drafts in June and July. We beat people to the punch on certain strategies and certain players, and that's exactly what I'm going to provide to you on this show. Okay, I want the opportunity for you to see what other people aren't seeing, or to rationalize things you may already know. I mean, you already may know Kyle Pitts is overvalued. Let me just be a reminder of that, because I want to help turn your team into a league winner. Subscribe, like, comment if you want to be a league winner. This is Joe Jacoby on the Fantasy Sports Show, and I'll be back soon with some more info. Have a good one.